Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. I'm Susie.
And I'm Michael, and we're excited you joined us for this adventure.
So today's very special guest is Jens Nielsen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. I'm really looking forward to this interview. It's going to be a lot of fun.
No, it is. And just to let our amazing audience know is Michael and I were actually introduced to Jens from my coach, Faisal. And I'm really glad that he introduced at least me to you, just because now I've even gotten to listen to podcasts that you're on, and I really love your story. It's Faisal is just a great person in general. So I was really happy when he did that, because to have somebody be referred to us is a big deal. Well, I think it's a big deal. I'm like, that's exciting. So yeah, again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize you were being coached by Faisal. That's awesome. So
yeah,
that's a great connection there.
That's been a great experience. Just for anyone who doesn't have coaching, and this is more, I would say, life coaching. I mean, it's the greatest gift, but I think any coaching is just phenomenal, right? Because we have so many blind spots that we just don't even know about. And so for a coach for anything, life, real estate investing, cooking, whatever it is, you can just have so many things unlocked that you didn't even know that you were capable of. So coaching is great. Coaching is good. Michael gets coached, so we love it.
I do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All coaching is different too. Yeah, for sure. So Jens, before we go ahead and move into the podcast episode, would you mind sharing with our listeners a little bit about your background and why you started investing in real estate?
Absolutely. Yeah. So from the name and the accent, I wasn't born in the US. I was actually born in Denmark. So just a little further east than where you guys are right now. So
Yeah.
I was born in Denmark, lived there the first 4 years of my life. Actually moved to London, England in the early mid 90s for a bit, and then on to the US. And I had a career in telecommunication and IT. That's kind of where my career was, because I was always interested in technology, and it was an exciting time, the beginning of the internet and all that. And I gradually, moved up, got, more education and better jobs and everything else, right? Until in my mid 40s, I was living in Durango, Colorado, an amazing place to live. But I also realized, I was going to the office every day, and I was looking around, it's like, man, I'm driving away from the mountains and going to an office instead of driving into the mountains to go mountain biking or hiking or whatever it was, right? And I was like, man, what do I do here? Because I was looking at it. It's going to be, it'd be another 20 years, 25 years of working for somebody else. And I didn't really have a meaningful way at that point to escape that, the rat race that everybody talks about. So I was looking at different things, and I just somehow discovered real estate. I picked up, one of the Bigger Pockets books, I think, How to Invest in Real Estate by Brandon Turner. And I was like, man, this is the answer. This is really what I need to do here. And I was super excited. Came home. I was actually listening to it on audio, and came home to my wife after walking my dogs. I was like, man, this is what we need to do. And she's like, well, seemed like everything you do, you're successful at, so let's do it. And I jumped into it, bought a couple of fourplexes down in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because that was kind of the closest bigger city, and started there, a couple of fourplexes, like, oh, this is cool. And then kind of gradually moved up to an 11 unit, then bought a 38 unit as a joint venture, and then dabbled in some other stuff along the way, right? Until we kind of found the syndication world about 3 years ago, and have grown there. I think we're up to probably close to 1,200 units that we've syndicated over the last 3 years. So, it went from the fourplexes 5 years ago to 1,100 plus units and quote unquote retirement. I don't have a W-2 job anymore. I'm doing real estate. I'm also a coach. I'm a certified high performance coach myself. So that's my other side business. So those two things are kind of what my days look like right now.
That's awesome, Jens. So just out of curiosity, from the time you purchased that first rental property until you left your W-2, how long was that?
It was 4.5 or 4 3/4 year or something like that.
Okay. Was that the end goal? Was did you go into real estate investing saying, okay, I'm going to accumulate enough cash flow or generate enough income that I'm going to be able to leave my W-2, or was it just supplemental?
Initially, it was like, a 10-year plan. Let's you know, I was trying to do the numbers, 50, 100 units over 10 years, and then, I can quote unquote retire. But then I also realized that if you dabble in it, you never get anywhere. So I kind of decided to just jump both feet full in, so after a year or two, realized, no, this is what I want to do full time, and just started really taking the necessary action, right? So, because I felt like that was the only way to be really successful, just like go for it 100%.
Yeah.
I'm curious how that conversation went with your wife when you were like, I'm going to leave my like high paying W-2.
Well, she's been extremely supportive, and actually she's like, when are you going to leave?
Oh, cool. That's cool. I love it.
Yeah, and I want to really, since we have the same coach, I want to really give a plug to him, because I had done some coaching, but not really high performance coaching. And, about early 2020, when COVID hit and everything else, I was like, man, I was scared, right? Is this going to happen? Am I going to be able to leave? Are nobody going to be paying rent? Is everything going to fall apart, right? Which was kind of the fear we initially had. And I realized I could not let that fear drive me. I cannot let that uncertainty dictate my life, because I would just have reverted back to the safety of my W-2 and stayed there.
Yeah.
With the result, probably my wife would have left me, actually, if that would have happened. So I got the clarity, and I got the courage and the direction I needed to move forward towards that. So he actually helped me and said, what does it take? I said, well, if I can do these things, I can leave, right? And get that. That really helped so much to get that.
Faisal did that?
Yeah, I mean, together we worked together to figure it out.
Oh no, I love that. No, I do. And yeah, I know, I totally understand when you mean like together you figure it out, because like what I constantly say, even about coaching, is that like it's all in us. Like the coach just helps us like unlock it and like put it in front for us to realize that it's there. So I love that. No, I really do. That's cool. And I am glad that your wife was super, super supportive, just because, sometimes like not only will the person who wants to get into real estate investing be in that fear, but like the wife can also pick up on that as well. You know what I mean? Like, or even anyone in the family. So that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, it started to see some success. She's always been supportive, but not super involved. But she started to see, the proof in the pudding, if you will, the income coming, the excitement, deals we were doing. And she was starting to see, man, this is really something that I enjoy doing and something I'm excited about and so forth. So she saw that, so bless her heart, she still has a W-2 job. She has our insurance, so that helps,
Yeah. I am curious, with your transition from so what made you initially want to go into coaching, but then move into to be a coach?
Yeah, it was, I always enjoyed like teaching. So I did teach for a while in like community college and stuff in IT, but I never really saw a lot of engagement from the students. Then I started doing some real estate, mentoring, I guess. And that was cool, but then it got a little bit repetitive. And then I started learning about coaching, working with Faisal and some other stuff that I've done. I was like, wow, this is where the power is. This is where we can actually change people. And every conversation is different. Every person is so different. So I got so excited about it. And I really saw the connection between, so I only really work with real estate investors, because that's kind of the people I feel connected with, right? So I saw that, hey, you learn the technical part. That's not that hard. You can pick up books, you can work with mentors, you can study that. But then the courage to take action, that's where people are held back, right? They don't see it. They see it as that's somebody else's success, or I'm not good enough, smart enough, whatever it may be, and that holds them back. So if you can get them over that challenge, people can just move to success so much quicker, right? And that's, as you said, it's in us, right? As Brendan Burchard says, you don't need to know everything, as long as you are the person that can generate options for the other. I mean, help the coachee to generate options. They're going to move forward with accelerated speed, right? So that's what I love.
I love that. Yeah. And just so our listeners they're aware. We actually interviewed Faisal back on episode 18. I was looking for that here. I found it back episode 18. So if you want to go listen to Faisal and Sons episode, that's where you can find it. That's who we're talking about right now. But yeah, Jans, I really enjoy that aspect, right? Because like you said, like you can learn the technical things like that. And a lot of coaches, real estate coaches out there help you learn that aspect, but there's not a lot of coaches like you just described that help you implement, like not really implement, but take action, like break those mindset barriers that you have, right? Because when I submitted my first LOI, when we submitted our first LOI, like when I clicked send on my computer, like on the email, it was like $7 million, right? Like I've never even like had never seen $7 million, right? Like how, and like I was just terrified. But like luckily I had called Susie and I was like, I'm
the non-nervous one.
Exactly. So she grounds me, right? Which is amazing because she's like, oh, it's totally fine, whatever, I don't care.
Right.
Like she's totally free and like,
yeah, if they say no, they say no. If they say yes, we got work to do.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But it's great. It's great to know that, your services, help with that, like taking the person to the next level, right? Like you can, closing on a couple of deals and things like that, but then like really open up your mind to then really like, okay, now I can expand past where I'm at, right? I mean, that's just all about mindset after that, right? And that's incredible.
What is the biggest, I guess, challenge that you have seen with like your clients with taking action, like beyond fear? Like, is there something else that is like pretty big that usually sticks out that's like common? Because I mean, what I see in my, like the group calls is that like a lot of us have the same feelings. It's just like a different story that comes with it. And I think that's super important for people to know is that like we all have the same, I don't want to say like problems, but we all have the same like thoughts and ideas are very similar ones. We just have a different story attached to them. And so like nobody should feel ashamed or fearful to be able to express them because they're all there. Just not enough of us are talking about it.
Yeah, and I think, the biggest problem that I have seen is, since I work with real estate investors is they have this vague idea. They want to be a real estate investor, but they can't see the path, right? So they see somebody else that has reached success and it's like, man, I want to be there, but they don't see the path. So they actually kind of give up because like, well, it's too hard. I don't know how to get there. So I'm not even going to try, right? So getting that, I think it's really the biggest challenge there is always that clarity and actually what's the next step, right? And so many people want like, I want the whole path laid out. It's like, well, good luck because it's going to change a million times along the way, right? I mean, what's the next step? Figure that out, and then the following will probably reveal itself after that, right? So I think people just have a problem seeing the whole journey, which is not necessary. Take the next step and then kind of slowly move in that direction. Trust the process, really. And I think that's where people get stuck, taking the next step because they don't know what the next one beyond that. And like we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Now that reminds me of mountain biking. So I know you mountain bike. So like in mountain biking, like there's a line that you should usually follow. Like, so I used to mountain bike after many crashes. I went back to cycling, even though like road cycling, even though I've had plenty of crashes there, but like, like at the very beginning, like they'd say like, there's a line. And I'm like, I don't see this line. I see boulders. Like I'm confused about the difference. And, just like a couple flips later, you're like, I'm going to figure out where this line is because I don't want to keep flipping.
Then you realize there wasn't a physical line drawn on the ground.
I mean, but there is
it's
a path.
mental one, right?
Yeah.
Over or around or through, whatever it may be. Yeah, no, I love that analogy. I need to use that one for other people that bikers, right?
No, I like it.
Sometimes you get thrown off the line, and this is where your skills and experience is going to help you either crash or hopefully not, right?
Yeah, hopefully not, just for the sake of like the pain.
Right.
Every crash is learning experience though, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna keep on with that analogy.
Yeah. Plenty of those, plenty of scars to remind myself of my crashes along the way.
What was your like leap from like your smaller multifamilies into syndications? Like what finally did it for you and what did that look like?
Yeah, and I think, as I mentioned, so I did 2 4-plexes and an 11 unit. That was just me
Uh-huh.
and my wife. We had those, and then I was like, and I preach and say everybody should get, mentors and coaches and everything. I didn't have any of those. I just talked to my friend. He's like, "This is how you invest in real estate." Like, this real estate, like, cool. I found a broker who would also love to work with other investors, and they're like, "Oh, let's go and buy these properties." Like, let's do it. So I didn't really, I started to slowly learn how to run the numbers as I was in the middle of these deals. But they were small and it was my own money, right? So I didn't really have any. But then I was like, okay, I want to go bigger. That's what I started to think about. So my first deal was actually a joint venture. It was 38 units. We did a joint venture, a couple of friends, and sort of 5 of us did this deal. So that was the first time I was actually, now I actually need to, because they just wanted to be in it, but not be super active in it. So I had to kind of do the analysis. I had to create the quote unquote investor packets and all those things, right? So that was my first leap into it. And I saw the success. I was like, well, maybe I can actually go out and raise money for more people. So I was able to connect with a group that was doing a deal in Atlanta, 212 units. And I was like, hey, is there a way I can help? I knew them. I met the guys before, I know underwriting, I can fly due diligence and all that stuff. And I can probably help raise some equity. So that was my first kind of opportunity to get into it. And I felt, quote unquote, safe because it wasn't my deal that was on the line if I weren't able to raise money and other things, right? So it was kind of a safe way to me to get into it. So I was able to raise, I think $400,000 for my first deal, right? And got some friends into it and got the courage. It's like, hey, I can actually figure this out. Let's continue to go down this route, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you decide then in that part of the journey, or where in your journey did you decide to get a coach?
Yeah, so at that point, right around when I was doing the first, the first syndication, I had actually joined like one of these coaching program, mentorship programs. It wasn't really coaching, it was real estate mentoring, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of them out there. Had joined one of those and I started going to events and I had started connecting with people. Had I not done that, I would probably still be dealing with small deals and thinking too small, right? So getting around people who were doing it, getting that like, wow, here's somebody that's quote unquote ahead of me. How can I move towards that? What does it take to be, just 2 steps ahead? And I would just connect with people and said, hey, is there a way, let's create a mastermind or whatever it may be, just some way to start getting around those people. So I really did that, probably a year into my journey. That's when I started that mentoring, if you will, right?
Yeah. No, and the reason I ask, like it's going to come all together, but like so many of us don't think that we need coaching or that we need help, or you have the other end where like you could be like an extreme introvert and like asking for help is just difficult. And so like you just said, a great example, even because once you got into the mentorship, granted, it helped, but those networking events and meeting those other people also helped. And even in like our sense, when everything went virtual and we could network like with everyone in the world, that's really what like boosted it. That's what made it come alive. I mean, especially for us, but with coaching in particular, yes, you can do it on your own. And yes, you can do it like introverted or whatever, because Michael and I are like very introverted people. Like takes practice to be able to do this and, just figuring out like what your recovery is. But with coaching, like you can also like move through that, you can figure out ways that you didn't think were possible, whether that is wanting to do it by yourself or thinking you can do it all on your own. Like, because majority of the time you're like one like meeting away from meeting the person that you need to, who will change everything for you, but you don't ever know what that meeting will be. So like just showing up to them is what makes the world of a difference.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it any better. I mean, had I not gone to these events, I mean, my partner that I've now done 500 units with, I met him at one of those events, right? We just connected, we hung out, and we started doing stuff together. And I literally talk to him 3 times a day now, right? So, and so, I mean, it's absolutely, you need to, and this is something I tell the people I work with, you cannot, well, maybe I shouldn't say that strongly. It is very difficult to be a successful investor if you stay at your house and all you try to do is call people and be on Zoom. And you guys have had a different journey, and doing middle, and I'm very impressed with what you guys have achieved. But you have been out there on the virtual events and so forth, right? But as well, if the world opens up, it doesn't. But at least get out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really where things starts to happen.
Absolutely, yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just to add to that is, you know, you had mentioned you started going to these events, started seeing people that are doing what you wanted to do, and you're like, and then I'm sure while you're at these events, which I talk about a lot, it's like just getting in the room with other people who are doing what you want to do, and you realize like, oh, this person has like 1,000 units, or this person has 1,500 units, or 200 units, whatever. Like all those people are just like you. You know, they talk like you, they look like you, they speak like you, you know, maybe smell like you, I don't know. But, you know, like, you know, once you get in those rooms with those people, then you realize, you know, those people are just like you. If they can do it, why can't you do it? Just being around those people, it just, something switches in your mind, right? And you're like, oh, I can totally do this. And then you're totally comfortable with it, right? And then, but I just don't, you know, I feel like there's always like steps that you take, you know, like, so for us, like, oh, we close on, you know, well, now we have like 196 units now as of today, or yesterday we closed on some more, but which is cool. But like, you know, we're slowly stepping up, right? But like every deal now, I don't know what the next big thing is, right? For us, like, because I feel pretty comfortable submitting LOI on like $20 million now, you know, like what's the next limit for us? Like, and you eventually hit that, but then I think what we're talking about, what's going full circle here, is like coaching then takes you to the next level, right? To get out of your own head and your own limiting beliefs, because like you can only do so much, and I think coaching will help accelerate that, right? So
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because the people who are like directly in your space, if they're not like into real estate investing, then like everything changes if you try to have those conversations with them. You know, like if I try to have the conversations with my like best friend from high school, I mean, it just gets glazed over. It's like, oh, well, I think this is super cool. So even just like, yes, you can have people out there who are even super supportive, but if they don't understand, because a lot of people don't like understand that the support that they need, you know, I mean, and I even recognize that through coaching. I was like, wow, I'm learning so much. Like you think you know yourself, but we really don't. You know, did you always plan, or not plan, but like to like become a coach? I think like is actually like a really great gift, because you can unlock so much and you really impact people in amazing ways. Did you ever think you were ever going to become a coach? Like,
no, I mean, you know, you guys you describe yourself as introverts, and I would probably have considered myself in that category as well, right? I mean, I've been the IT guy for 25 plus years, right? And I was mostly comfortable in front of a computer because I could control it, but I also realized that was not where my full potential was, right? So as I mentioned, I like to teach and train people, because I feel like when you're doing that, you have to at least know the topic pretty well before you can start teaching somebody else. So that's again the technical side of things. And then I became a manager at work 3+ years ago, and I was like, I really want to know about leadership, not management I can figure out, but leadership. So my boss sent me on a leadership course, and I actually even got him to send me for a week-long Jack Canfield kind of coaching program thing, whatever. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, right? So, I mean, he paid for it and I got to go and I learned all these things. I was like, really, this is so exciting. I want to do that, right? And it started moving into it. And as I mentioned, at that time, I was mentoring people on the real estate side, but I started pulling in some like coaching techniques, you know, as I was learning them, and started asking questions that went a little bit deeper than just, you know, oh, have you called 10 brokers and underwritten 50 deals and all this, right? So it really started growing. I was like, man, this is so much more interesting to me, right? Because I can help people move forward, and the conversations are more interesting to me than they are just looking at another deal. So no, if you'd asked me 5 years ago, I'd say that you're crazy, but now I'm like, anything else.
No, I love that. I really, really do. Just because like so much was unlocked inside of you just from that event. That's super cool that your boss even did that though, because I mean, like at some level too, bosses don't really promote like learning more than what you have to just do in front of your screen. So that was actually a really great opportunity that he, I guess, approved. I don't really know. I don't really like that word, but it's true.
Yeah, I was able to influence him to say yes, right? And then I would use some of the skills I was learning, I used them with my employees, right? And I started to get them to go a little bit deeper and talk beyond what their project they were working on. I think everybody was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And they opened up to it, and it was, pushing them a little bit. So I started to see some of those effects too. And that was really cool.
That is, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Because like when we can impact more than like ourselves and our direct family, like so much is possible. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Jens, we are moving towards the end of the show, which brings us to the Adventurous Four. These are 4 exploratory questions we ask all of our guests. So the first question is, where is one place you wish to travel to and why?
I definitely, New Zealand is on my bucket list. I had hoped to go here in the last year or two, but given the circumstances, have not. But the pictures and just the amazing terrain and all that stuff just looks so cool. So that's definitely a place that's on my list to go for sure.
That's surprising. Like we actually get that quite a lot, like, so like, I don't know what it is with real estate investors in New Zealand, but there's some connection, right? Because I think, of the, almost 30 podcasts, I think 30 now, that we've released, like, I think probably, 4 or 5 of them have said New Zealand, which is a substantial amount, of all the countries you can go to in the world,
New Zealand
is the winner. Maybe we'll have a retreat there,
Yeah, we should for sure.
I like that. Cool. Then the second question is, what is the number one thing on your bucket list, and how are you leveraging real estate investing to achieve it?
Yeah, so I think, maybe it's not a specific bucket list item, but just that time freedom to take a month off work, quote unquote, right? And it's funny, I literally had on my whiteboard the dates for next year to go back to Denmark. And I literally this morning booked the ticket to go next spring. So I'm going to take a month. It's going to be the first time for God knows, well, forever that I've taken it that far or that long to be somewhere, right? And I'm super excited about it. And this is the opportunity, right? I have now, of course I have a lot of obligations, but I can plan it. And I don't have to ask my boss to take the time off, right? And being virtual, I can then, keep up with things as I need to. So just those opportunities to go somewhere for extended period of time. That's really, I think, what real estate is giving me.
Yeah, that's absolutely 100% great. I love it. So the third question is, what is one piece of advice for someone who wants to start passively investing in real estate?
Yeah, and I think if you have a good job that you like, certainly don't try to go and buy a duplex or a fourplex and try to self-manage that. I mean, it would just take away your energy and your focus. So really the advice here is look at what your energy is best spent. And if you're a high net worth or high income earner and you can find a good operator, find that person and partner with them versus trying to do it yourself. And it's interesting, actually, I'm going to get on a call with this pediatrician this evening, and she's like, oh, I want to go and buy a fourplex. I was like, man, well, you should invest passively. I think that's a better use of your time and your money. So I'm gonna see if I can influence her to make that decision.
Yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. Especially like if we self-managing is just, I mean, that's for the brave.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Ask me how I know.
Right. I can imagine a doctor on call, and then on call for the properties as well, right? And like a resident's calling, and then the hospital's calling, and you're like, oh my god,
right?
Yeah, that would be a lot. For sure.
But then the fourth and final question is, if you had unlimited resources available to you, how would you leave an impact?
Yes, I love that question, right? So, I'm very passionate about cycling and the outdoors. So if I could take, all kids from wherever school where they're at to have that experience of going out into nature and moving your body, of being, getting to a place that you can't drive or otherwise get to, you have to either hike or ride your bike. I mean, just that experience that I've been blessed with. If I could do that for a ton of kids, that would really be something else.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too, just because like nature is seriously one of the greatest gifts, and like not enough people have the opportunity to be able to experience a lot of it. So that I really do. I love that a lot.
Mhm. So before we end the show, Jens, would you mind sharing with our listeners, our adventurous family, how they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So my email is Jens, Jens, at opendoors with an S capital.com, Jens at opendoorscapital.com. My website is opendoorscapital.com. I don't really have something for my coaching because it's all very organic, but if anybody wants to explore it, want to reach out, just send me an email, Jens at opendoorscapital.com.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend our listeners, like if you're thinking about like, I don't know when I should get a coach, if you're already having that thought in your head, then you should get a coach, right? So yeah.
And if you aren't having that thought in your head, you should get a coach.
So yeah, definitely explore it, because it will definitely take you to the next level. Susie and I both are coached, and it's just incredible what they unlock inside of you. And it's just amazing. So yeah, so if you reach out and connect with Jens, make sure that you say, hey, I heard you on the Adventures of Real Estate Investor podcast, and he will definitely respond then. If you name drop Michael and Susie on there too.
Absolutely.
Well, Jens, thank you so much for sharing this space with us today. It was really great to have you.
Thanks, Susie and Michael. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time, explore more, adventure awaits.
Woo!